everyone, my name is Ben Eady. I'm the online media manager for ModernAnalyst.com, the premier online community for business analysts. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar titled Achieving BPM Excellence with Visio 2013 and BPMN 2.0. Today's featured speakers are Krishna Mamipadaka with Microsoft and Scott Helmers from Harvard Computing Group. The webinar will last approximately 60 minutes. I'd like to say thank you to Microsoft for sponsoring this event, and at this time I'd like to turn it over to Krishna to get us started.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are really excited to talk to all of you today about Microsoft's vision for BPM, and the topic today is achieving business process excellence with Visio 2013 and BPMN 2.0. And I have here today with me Scott Helmers, who is a partner at the Harvard Computing Group and a very well-renowned and respected Visio MVP. My name is Krishna Mamidipaka. I'm a senior product marketing manager at Microsoft. I've been with the Microsoft Office division for about a couple of years now, and most of my time so far has been spent on Visio, SharePoint, and project technologies. So much has transpired since we spoke at this forum about 6 months to a year ago. And as you might all have known, Microsoft announced Windows 8, Office 2013, as well as the new version of Office 365, and so on and so forth. And I wanted to specifically draw your attention to Microsoft Visio, the new Visio. So we did announce Visio Professional 2013, Visio Standard 2013 with the rest of the Microsoft Office suite. And what's really new here is the availability of Microsoft Visio through Office 365 as a subscription model. So we are very excited. We see a lot of traction out there in the market for both Microsoft Professional Visio 2013 as well as Visio Pro for Office 365. Coming to today's agenda, I will kickstart the presentation giving you a short overview about Microsoft's vision for BPM, and I will talk about how you as business analyst community can really start using Visio 2013 for your day-to-day business analysis purposes. Then Scott will take over, and he is going to talk to you about BPMN 2.0 within Visio 2013, how you can create, validate, and deploy some of the processes using the BPMN standardized methodology. And during the course of my discussions, I will also give a very quick demo of how you can start using Visio 2013 for some really effective collaboration. And then we will direct your attention to some of the resources that you can start using and grow your knowledge around Visio and associated technologies like SharePoint and Exchange Server, etc. And we will do the short poll, as I mentioned. So talking about the Q&A, we have a fairly full content today. So if you have any specific questions, keep entering them in the Q&A section within the tool that you are using to log on to this webcast. We will try and answer as many questions as possible during the course of the webcast, but we will keep a track of all the questions that are coming in and who is asking those questions, and we will get back to you with a personalized response after the webcast is over. So I really like covering this chart as a backdrop to many of the discussions around Microsoft Office 2013 as well as Visio 2013 in general with all the customers and partners that I meet. So we are in a world today that is dominated by devices, right? So the proliferation of devices has really blurred the lines between personal time and office time, and we as information workers are coming to expect that any of our content to be accessible across any device, anytime. And that really gets us down to the necessity of cloud. So unless the data that we are seeking to be accessed through any of the devices we have, unless it is stored in sort of a cloud infrastructure with the necessary security and authentication restrictions and permissions, this particular paradigm is not going to be successful. And we as Microsoft, we really know how you work and how you want to work, and we're also seeing out there a big push towards employees who want to be socially connected within the enterprise, right? So most of the tools, as you will see, coming from Microsoft is going to carry a social layer, and Visio 2013, SharePoint 2013, and in general Office 2013 is going to be no different. So we've already started on this really exciting journey, and you will see more and more coming from our side in order to grow the social involvement of employees within an organization. And we as business analysts, we always keep hearing, at least in the past 2 or 3 years, the concept of mobile BPM, social BPM. So this is very, very critical in our profession, because unless there is a grassroots level support for the initiatives that we create or run in the organization, these BPM initiatives are likely not going to succeed. So in order to gather and create that grassroots level support and recognition for the initiatives, the social-based technologies are going to be very critical. And you might have actually seen Microsoft acquire Yammer a few months ago, and it's going to be very closely integrated and interoperable with the other products that Microsoft has very soon. Let me take you through the vision for BPM as it relates to Microsoft through a very simple mental model. No matter what kind of BPM initiative that you are embarking on, the primary step for any BPM initiative is all about creating diagrams, right? And Microsoft Visio as a tool for BPM initiatives is very, very elaborate, and it gives you more than 29 sort of templates and stencils in order to create your diagrams. So it could be a simple cross-functional flow chart, a simple workflow diagram, or it could be standardized diagrams like BPMN 2.0 or UML 2.4, etc. And these diagrams are seldom created in isolation. You want to collaborate with your sponsors, you want to collaborate with your peers, and you also collaborate with those that is going to be impacted with the processes that you are creating. You want to continuously get feedback, and you want to work together with them as you are sort of creating the processes that you want to deploy. And so Microsoft Visio does provide a lot of collaborative aspects, and I'm going to build on it a little bit more as I go through my charts. Then these processes need to be deployed. By deployment, I mean both automating the processes that you create collaboratively, or maybe just rolling out the process without really automating it. And finally, for any process to succeed and to have the sort of longevity, you need to be able to continuously monitor the process. How many people are openly embracing the process? How is the process performing? Where are the process bottlenecks, etc.? So monitoring these processes are also very important step for the further business process reengineering and so on and so forth. And all these necessary steps for BPM need to be encompassed through a very strong social, cloud, and mobile ecosystem, as I mentioned before. So let me take you through some of the key enhancements that have gone into Microsoft Visio 2013 to help support this vision for BPM that Microsoft has always had. The first major enhancement and investment area has been to make the diagrams that you create look extremely professional and very elegant. We do believe that making the diagrams look professional will have a great impact as you are trying to get buy-in for the new initiatives that you want to launch from your peers, from the sponsors, as well as from the people who get impacted at the from an execution standpoint. So you will see that Microsoft Visio 2013 has hundreds of new themes, effects, variants that you can apply to the diagrams that you create. And most of the diagrams, as you can see, have a very metro and sort of an advanced look and feel. And what you see on the screen here are some really simple diagrams of flow chart and workflow that we created using Visio 2013 and apply some out-of-the-box themes, and variants to those diagrams. So Visio 2013 is not just about creating attractive diagrams or professional diagrams. It is also about creating diagrams really fast, right? So starting Visio 2010, we introduced some really impressive productivity features like Auto Connect and Quick Shapes mini toolbar. We introduced features like the floaty, which is very context sensitive. You select a shape and you right click on a shape without you really needing to go to the ribbon menu in the Visio diagram. You can actually see some of the quick steps, like what kind of color you want to apply, what kind of theme you want to apply, if you want to add a comment to the diagram, etc., coming up right with your right click floaty menu. And we also introduced features like Quick Shapes mini toolbar, infinite canvas. In other words, you don't have to worry about setting the page size to fit the diagram, but if page size is going to automatically resize itself in order to fit the diagram that you are creating. So these are some of the key features that will help you as business analysts to focus on the structure of the diagram and focus on the content of the diagram, as opposed to needing to work a lot and spend a lot of time trying to align and resize, etc., of the diagram. Adding to the concept of faster diagrams, one new feature that we introduced in Visio 2013 is something called change shape. So if you are a power user of Visio, you will know that the shapes in Visio can carry a payload of data with them. So typically, if you were to replace one shape that has a data payload associated with it with a different shape, then you would lose all that data payload immediately, and you would have to re-enter all that data once again. But in Visio 2013, we have a feature that will let you change the shape with a different shape, and when you do that, all that metadata is preserved. So think about, let's say you have a BPMN 1.2 diagram and you want to replace that BPMN 1.2 diagram with a BPMN 2.0 diagram. And how cool would it be if all that associated information moving in from 1.2 to 2.0 is preserved, and at the same time giving you some additional flexibility to add more information that is compatible with BPMN 2.0 standard. We are also moving forward and keeping in sync with the evolving industry standards. For example, we introduced the concept of BPMN 2.0 as a diagramming template in 2013, as well as we are extending support to the latest standard for UML as well. And this is definitely driven by the business analyst community, these sort of enhancements, because in the last one or two BPM summits and BPM conferences that we've been to, one of the key requirement and key discussion that we've had with the business analyst community was to add support for BPMN 2.0. Hey, we use Visio quite a bit in order to create our standardized process diagrams, but it would be really nice if you guys can also start supporting some of the latest standards. And we certainly went back to the drawing board and we said, all right, let's go in and add support for BPMN 2.0 standard as well. So the key point to take away is, if you have any suggestions in which on which we can act and improve and add on to the product roadmap that we are continuously working on, don't be shy, get in touch with us, let us know your thoughts. We are on all the social media channels like LinkedIn, Facebook, you name anything, Twitter, and we always take all the feedback that we get from our user community very seriously. So it's not just about creating diagrams fast and standardizing the diagrams. It is also giving you an innate ability to validate the diagrams that you create. So for many of the templates that business process analysts use, like BPMN, cross-functional flowcharts, workflows, etc., what we do provide out of the box in Visio is an ability to check the structural integrity of the diagrams. Think about it this way in the very simplest of the scenarios. Let's say you have a decision checkpoint in a flowchart that you're creating. So every decision checkpoint should have at least two branches coming out of it. What if the decision is yes? What if the decision is no? Fairly straightforward. So let's say while you're creating the diagram, you missed connecting the yes branch to the following steps that need to happen when the condition is validated to be true. Then Visio will tell you, hey, Mr. Visio user, or hey, Miss Visio user, I think there is a problem with the structural integrity of the diagram. And not just that, it will also, when you click on that error, it will highlight the portion of the diagram that error is associated with. Now, let's say you work in an industry that needs to comply with various government regulations or industry standards or even rules that you need to follow within the organization. Visio gives you an ability to go in and add additional rules that are either related to your industry or related to any compliance requirement that is coming from the government, etc., so that you're not just validating the diagram for structural integrity, but also for some of these compliance and regulatory sort of requirements. And Visio is now optimized for touch. So Visio is going to be supported on a wide variety of form factors that includes desktops, laptops, as well as x86 tablets that are everywhere these days. And Visio Services, which is the ability to publish a Visio diagram onto a browser and look at it through a browser, that is going to be supported on a much broader ecosystem that also includes some of the competing ecosystems like Android, Apple, etc. As I mentioned before, now you can diagram using Visio Professional 2013 features anywhere, on any machine, anytime, using subscription to Office 365. So if you were an Office 365 subscription customer, then you can log on to any machine, whether you have admin privileges on that machine or not, whether you're traveling, whether you're at a kiosk, and you can stream a cached copy of Visio 2013 to that machine and start diagramming, and you will get all the features that are offered in Visio 2013 regular install while you are working through Office 365 Visio. And Visio is very strongly integrated with the rest of the Office portfolio. For example, we have very strong integration to SharePoint 2013. What it does is it helps you work on these processes and initiatives in a very social sort of fashion, right? You can follow a Visio document. In other words, if there are any changes to a document, you will immediately be notified. You can have little focus groups to have discussions around a particular process that you are putting in place. And you can also follow some business leaders who have been focused on BPM, so that whenever they say something about some of the initiatives that they are sponsoring, right, you will immediately get notified. And just like Twitter, you can use handles, and you can create hashtags, and so on and so forth. If you haven't used SharePoint 2013 and the social features in there, I certainly recommend that you start using it within the context of many of your BPM initiatives and other projects that you're leading in general. The other aspect of what you can do with Visio is you can develop a set of workflows called SharePoint workflows in Visio, and you can deploy them in SharePoint to be able to automate them. I'm sure there are many processes that you want to automate and that you want to deploy, and this gives you a very easy way to leverage the spending that you have already done in this regard. Most of the organizations are SharePoint. Most of the organizations are Visio. So rather than buying some additional piece of software in order to automate a class of workflows, you can certainly use the investments that you have already made in order to start automating the workflows. And the great thing about what we have introduced in 2013 is the ability to automate these workflows without writing a single line of code. And 2010, we did have SharePoint workflow create authoring capabilities, but SharePoint workflows in general were just straight through workflows. You could not have complexities such as loops and custom actions and stages, etc. But going from 2010 to 2013, the workflow aspect in SharePoint and Visio in general has taken a very, very massive facelift. And I certainly encourage you to learn more about it. There is a lot of content in the web if you want to learn more. In my previous portions, I did mention to you that Visio lets you connect data to diagrams in order to be able to later publish that diagram through Visio services onto onto a browser. So what that lets you do is to use something we called data graphics, which give additional meaning to a diagram depending on the changing data in the back end. For example, here in this manufacturing process that has been created with Visio and data linked and published onto a browser, you are seeing that there are some problems with supplier, there is some problem going on with the assembly, so that a manufacturing manager can immediately kickstart some efforts on his or her end in order to fix these issues associated with the supply chain. So I will go through this with a very small demo, but remember that in Visio 2013 and SharePoint 2013, you can work with others in parallel. In other words, there are multiple people that can work together on a diagram no matter where they are located in the world. And this is supported as long as the document that you're accessing, Visio document that you're accessing, is either shared through SharePoint or SkyDrive. And also, Microsoft Link is going to be very strongly integrated with Visio in 2013. So you can start these rich Microsoft Link-based conversations with those who are working with you in the same diagram and have a IM conversation, or you can have a voice chat, video chat, etc. So it gives you all those sort of flexibilities without really leaving the context of the diagram that you are working in. So I'm going to do a very quick demo that shows you the power of collaboration in the new Visio. I'll just give a second for you all to refresh your screens there, because I know it takes a little while for the screen to refresh. So what you will see on your screen pretty soon is a Visio workflow diagram. And any organization, sales is the heart and blood of the company, and there is a very structured way in which the leads come from the marketing activities and get converted into wins or losses. So this is a diagram that sort of shows the sales funnel. So you have leads coming in from the left, and they go through different layers of sales related activity and pre-sales related activity, and finally you end up with either losses or wins for all the leads that are coming in. So let's just say I'm a new VP of sales for this company, and I really like how this diagram looks like. There are some nice effects that have been applied. I never realized that Visio can make a diagram look as professional as this one. But one question that I have is probably how often is this dashboard updated? I see that the dashboard has been updated today, but I don't know when is it going to be updated next, right? So this is the Visio diagram that I'm looking through my browser. So I'm in my browser. So if you're not doing that in your organizations, you should certainly start publishing your diagrams to SharePoint so that others can look at the diagram through the browser. So I want to add a comment for my data analyst to go in and respond. I will select this particular shape that says raw leads 33,000. I go to the comment section right at the top. I click on comments. I want to add a new comment, and let's say the new comment is, I want to know the data refresh frequency. right? So I can just select any shape and associate a comment with that particular shape. Now, let me see how this sort of gets reflected when I open the Visio diagram. So let me go in, and there is an option here that says open in Visio, right? So I click on that little icon that says open in Visio. So what happens is now the diagram is open for me in my Visio client, right? Very good. So I did enter a comment, right? So if I zoom in here, I can see the comment that I just entered, and I can respond to this as well. Let's say I'm the data analyst now. Let me say every weekend for sure. So very simply, I've been able to look at the comment and add a new comment to that thread. So as I'm working with the diagram, a little message popped up at the very bottom. I don't know whether you saw that or not in the status bar. It tells me that there is somebody else working on the document at the same time. All right. So looks like a colleague of mine is working on the document as I'm working on the document as well. So I can open a link from the context of the Visio diagram. So this is a link IM. I can have a quick IM chat with my colleague saying, are you done working? So she can, of course, respond back saying, yes, I'm done, or it is going to take me a little while, or something like that. And I can also have a voice conversation with her. I can have a video chat with her, and I can bring additional people into my chat. Again, without opening up link on my desktop, but from within the context of my Visio diagram. I think it is very powerful feature for the business analyst to have their focus on the diagram. And here, if you focus on this particular part a little bit, right, you will see that there are some locks that are appearing on these shapes. So it basically tells me that there is someone else working on that shape. And when I click on that little lock, it will give me the link presence of the person who is working on that shape. Again, I think it is very powerful because you know who are all working on the diagram together and what are the shapes that have been locked by each of those for working on. So let me change the zoom back to how it was. And I think my colleague is done working on the diagram. And when she goes in and saves the diagram, I do see right at the very bottom on the status bar here that there are updates available. So I click on that updates available, and I will immediately see the changes that she has made to the diagram apply to my file. So looks like she moved this shape a little bit to the very top, and you know, she might have done other changes as well. So you can see how interesting the collaboration has become in Visio. You can add comments to a diagram, or you can see comments to on a diagram that you have created, either through a browser or through the client, and you can work with others in the company in parallel if you have the right version of SharePoint and Visio deployed in your infrastructure. So let me go in and save this diagram. So it says it is uploading the diagram to SharePoint. So I get out of my client. I go back to my browser. So let me go in and refresh the browser, and you will see that some of the changes that have gone into the diagram are reflected in the browser itself. It's all real time. It's all you know, collaboration. It's all about working together, working well, and working effectively with your peers and sponsors and people who get impacted with the process in a very collaborative and inclusive fashion. So with that, let me go back and switch the controls to Scott here so that he can take you through the rest of the presentation.
Great. Thank you very much,
Scott?
Krishna. Yes, thank you. What everyone should see now is a slide that has just a quick bit of background about me. And just the snapshot view is I've been hanging around in the IT industry a long time. I've been doing process-related things for almost exclusively for the last 14 or 15 years. My company, the Harvard Computing Group, is a consulting and software company based in the Boston area. Our primary software product is called TaskMap, and it is a Visio add-in, which is part of where I've acquired, or largely why I've acquired a fair amount of knowledge about Visio over the last 10 years. As you can see, I've written a book about Visio 2010, published that a couple of years ago, and I'm in the final chapter of writing Visio 2013 step by step, which will be available in a couple of months. What I would like to demonstrate for you this afternoon is a couple of things related to BPMN, naturally, but also to point out some of the key features in Visio 2013. The quick backstory is, as Krishna has already mentioned, in Visio 2013, you have the 2.0 version of the BPMN stencil. Visio included a BPMN template and stencils in Visio 2010, but it was the 1.2 version. So what we've done is move from a world of Visio 2010 with built-in 1.2 stencils and a world in which there were 3 or 4 companies, I've listed 4 of them on the screen for you, that also made available a 2.0 BPMN template compatible with Visio 2010. We've moved from that world to now with Visio 2013, where BPMN 2.0 is included. These are the things I'm going to demonstrate for you, a very quick overview of Visio 2013, but mostly I want to focus on BPMN and talk about some of the, actually demonstrate for you some of the features that Krishna mentioned in his presentation. Before we get to Visio, let me just put up one slide here. This is the BPMN.org website. If you're familiar with BPM, I'm sure you already know about it. If you're not, I'll just point it out. BPMN.org takes you to the object management group, which is now the home organization that is responsible for the business process model and notation standard. So if you want more information about BPMN, I would definitely come here. You can get copies of the specs, as you can see, by following some of the links that are on this page. Now, Visio 2013. This is what it looks like when you first start Visio 2013. This is the startup page. You see a list of recently accessed documents on the left. So when you first start Visio, you immediately have access to things you've done recently. Plus, you have these thumbnails, very bold and colorful thumbnails that offer access to a variety of different templates. But one of the nice things about this page in particular is that the thumbnails that are presented are organized dynamically based on your usage. So the more often you use a template, the more it will float to the top here. There's also a nice search capability. So if I don't have any idea what might or might not be available about a particular topic, I can type something like BPMN, for example, in the search box, and there's an online search conducted for me that in this case returns a specific Visio template for BPMN. I might be looking for something more general, so I might say type something like process mapping, and let's see what we get there. We get one map. Somebody actually, during Krishna's presentation, asked whether there was a value stream map template in Visio, and indeed you can see it right here. If I type just the word process, I get a very significant list. Oops. Pardon me, let me press the delete key here. If I search for just the word process, I get a very significant list of results. And what's interesting is it's not just Visio templates over here, as you see, but if you look over on the right side of the screen, you'll see that the online search returns templates in a variety of different categories related to the word process, some of which are available in other parts of the Office suite. So notice I've scrolled down to the very bottom, and you see some search results related to Excel, Word, and PowerPoint. So there's true integration here among the members of the Office suite. Now, one last tip before we leave this page behind. Notice these two words I'm pointing to now. One says featured. That's the page we're looking at. That's the one where the most recently used templates bubble to the top. And then there's the word categories. If you've used Visio before, you're probably familiar with these categories. They weren't quite so bright and colorful before, but as you see, clicking the word categories brings you to the familiar categories: business, engineering, flowchart, general, and so forth. So another way to get started is, you want something related to flowchart, click categories, click flowchart, and now you'll see all the familiar flowchart templates. And if you have Visio Professional, you will see the BPMN template right here. So let's now click on that. We get a description. I can choose to create a new diagram from this template. If you used BPMN 1.2 with Visio 2010, one of the things you'll notice right away is a dramatic simplification of what you're looking at. For BPMN 2.0, there is a single stencil called BPMN Basic Shapes. In the 2010 implementation of BPMN 1.2, there were 6 or 7 different stencils that were appropriate and useful, but it was a lot, and it was a lot to sort out. So here it's very simple, very easy. We have the 3 primary types of events. We have activities, like the task shape. We have events, like the start, intermediate, and end events. And we have gateways, what are frequently are decision diamonds, or they may be splits and combined in a process with parallel paths or multiple branches. So how easy is it to create a new BPMN 2.0 diagram? It's as easy as dragging a start shape onto the page. And now that that's there, let's zoom in a little bit so we can see what I want to show you a bit more closely on your screens. So here's my start shape. I'm going to take advantage of something that Krishna mentioned, and that's auto connect. When you hover over a shape in Visio 2013, notice the 4 blue triangles that have appeared. Those are the auto connect arrows. I'll use those in just a second. Let me drag another shape on first and show you another diagram creation feature that's a really, really handy thing. That's the green line, the green dashed line that you see. This dynamic grid allows me to see immediately whether my shapes are aligned at the centers, the tops, or the bottoms. This works both horizontally and vertically, so I can see how new shapes I'm going to drop on the page are aligned and how they're spaced. Notice the double-headed arrow. That indicates that if I let go of the mouse right now, not only are these 2 shapes aligned at their middles, but the spacing between the shapes matches the default spacing for the page. So I think I moved my mouse just as I dropped that. Let me go back and do that one more time. So now we've got the shapes on the page. There's a slightly different kind of feedback that I get if I bring a shape onto the page that's the same size as an existing shape. A moment ago, we had just a single dashed line. Now you notice that when this shape is aligned at the center, or at the middle, I get dashed lines showing me that it is exactly the same size. And if I position it left to right, notice the double-headed arrows, a pair of them now, that indicates that the spacing is all set. It's exactly the same between each pair of shapes. So this is great. It gives me a really easy way to drop shapes on the page without having to worry about aligning them later. Back to those blue triangles. If I want to draw a connector across between these guys, I don't have to even draw anything. I just have to click on the little blue arrow. And if I want to add more shapes, I can hover over that little blue arrow for just a second, and what I end up with is the Quick Shapes menu that lets me fire other shapes on. So I don't even have to go back to the stencil and drag more shapes on. I can use the Auto Connect and the Quick Shapes menu to bring shapes onto the page merely by clicking. So a couple of things there for you to keep in mind. What I'm actually going to do now is, rather than enhance this diagram any further, I'm going to switch and use a new, an existing diagram that has a partial BPMN process on it. And then I will enhance that and show you some additional features as well as demonstrate some of the BPMN specific features. So here is a ticketing process. So maybe you're running a corporate event, or maybe you're sponsoring entertainment at a trade show, or whatever the case might be, something that requires that people will make reservations, acquire tickets, and attend your event. I've created this particular one with a particular set of themes and variants, and I'll talk more about those in just a couple of minutes, that you can notice that the shapes have sort of a beveled edge, a rounded, almost pillow-like look. There's a bit of a gradient in each of the shapes so that they have some style. It's a more professional-looking diagram than the traditional flowchart. If I want to make it look like a traditional flowchart, let me just give you a quick preview of the power of Visio 2013 themes. I'm going to choose a totally unadorned theme here and apply it. And actually, I still have the bevels there, so I still get a little bit of a 3D look, but I'm back to basic black and white. Notice that even the background of the page changes as well. Let me undo that change and go back to our original look. You might like this look, you might not, but the nice thing is it's very, very easy to change. Just to prove how different you can make your diagram look, the changes I'm going to make, I'm actually going to make into a different version of this diagram right here that has exactly the same shapes, exactly the same flow of logic, but it happens to be a different theme and different background. I'm sorry, my mouse is acting a little strangely because of the presentation software here, so let's zoom in a different way. What we'll do is zoom in so you can actually see the logic in this diagram. And let me take advantage of another very nice feature in Visio 2013. I don't really need my stencil window to be this big, the shapes window, so I'm temporarily going to click this little tiny arrow and minimize the shapes window. Notice that all the shapes are still there. They're all usable. I can drag them on, but it provides takes the minimum amount of space possible for the shapes window when I want to work on my diagram. So now I can make this big. You can read everything on the page. Here, using BPMN 2, what we've done is apply, there are some little shapes on some of these, little icons, I should say, on some of these BPMN shapes. How did they get there? They got there because each one of these shapes has some right-click context intelligence. For example, this particular check seat inventory is a task that looks like a little person icon there. Why is that? Because we previously chose that this task was done by a user. Notice the check mark. If I decide this is actually a service task, notice the little gear symbol that appears there. Let's zoom in a little bit more so you can see that. If I realize that, you know what, this is actually a different type of task, maybe it's another type of task, all I need to do is click, and those icons change dynamically. So once we check the seat inventory, if there are seats available, then we have two paths, a yes path and a no path. If the seats are available, we can print tickets, we can send and hold the tickets, and we're all done. If the requested seats are not available, we have a branch, and we go to this task. Now, this task has the person icon, so this is something a person is doing, but there's also a little curved arrow at the bottom center. Where did that come from? That appeared because in addition to setting the task type, we can also indicate whether there is a loop associated, whether this task loops. If it doesn't, then there's no mark on the task in the bottom center. But if I choose the standard type loop, then that's what causes that arrow to appear. The satisfying condition for this loop is expressed here in the callout. Continue until customer accepts or rejects alternate seats. And here's that final decision point. Did they accept or reject? And we see the paths that apply in either case. So far so good. Very easy to drag the shapes on the page, shoot them onto the page using the Quick Shapes menu. But now what I want to do is make some changes to the logic of my diagram. In particular, you'll notice that this portion of the diagram, after we find that there are seats available by whichever path, it says print tickets and send or hold tickets. Now that's for a couple of problems with that. For one, why would we bother to print tickets in this day and age? What about e-tickets? And number two, how do we know whether to send or hold or not? Well, you know, this actually sounds like there's more work involved than just these two boxes. So let's do something. Let's create a sub-process. And I want to show you how amazingly easy that is. And this works in both Visio 2010 and Visio 2013. I clicked on the Process tab, and there's a button here that says Create from Selection. And this is in the sub-process group. There are actually 3 different ways to create a sub-process. But I've got a couple of selected shapes, so let me click this button. What you see happen right away is those shapes disappeared, and another shape appeared in its place with a plus sign. For those of you who are familiar with BPMN, you know that that plus sign indicates that this is a sub-process. So let me just type some text here. I'll just do type fulfill order. So now I've labeled this shape. In addition to making my other shapes go away and replacing it with a sub-process shape, the other thing Visio did for me here, notice the pop-up text says Control-click to follow link, and the cursor has a little hyperlink symbol on it. Let's do exactly that. Hold down the Control key, press click, and here are my two shapes. Visio, I'm going to drag them down to the center of the page so I can modify this a little bit. But what Visio has done here is built a sub-process page. Notice we now have page 2, and drop my shapes on it. So with one simple action of selecting the shapes and then clicking the sub-process button, I've built a sub-process page. So what do I want to do now? Well, I need to add a start shape for this sub-process, and we'll use those same auto-connect arrows to fire this guy across here. But now let's tackle the meat of what we need to change. Let's insert a decision here. Do we really need to print tickets? Well, let's bring a gateway onto the page, and let me show you another very useful feature. When I hover over this connector, notice the ends light up in green. Well, when I let go of the mouse, Visio not only inserts that shape, but it does so by making room and inserting another connector automatically. So all I need to do is drop that shape on the connector, and Visio does the rest. So now I can type a question, print or e-tickets, and define my logic. So if I say print, then I'm going to put print on this. I need a path, a branch, for the e-ticket scenario. So let's use auto-connect and quick shapes. Let's add a new task here. This one will be send e-ticket confirmation. And from there, once we've sent that, we're going to be done. So let's put an end shape. And I'm going to drag it way over to the right here because we're going to use that for the upper path as well. So this is the path where we're finished. Let's just mark this one for completeness. We'll say this is e-tickets. So now we're getting there. We've got a better handle on our process. But there's some other things I wanted to do too. For example, if we print tickets, we need to decide whether to send or hold them. So let's do the same thing again. Let's drag another decision in here. Let Visio expand the diagram for me toward the right. This decision will be based on the time before the event. So greater than 7 days till the event, that will be the decision. If the answer is yes, it's more than 7 days, then we're going to hold the tickets. If not, then we'll add another path to the bottom, and we'll insert, here's a case where I inserted the wrong shape. Is that the end of the Earth? Well, no. If you remember something Krishna mentioned earlier, there's a change shapes capability. I can right-click on this shape, choose the change shape button, and with a single click, I've just swapped one shape for another. Now, that was a fairly simple substitution, one BPMN shape for another, but you actually have a broad range of shapes from which you can choose in many circumstances. And I won't belabor the point of finishing the logic of this diagram, but it would probably look something like this. And I've got a final path from hold down to here. And so there's a rough, I'd probably clean it up a little bit, add some more labels, fix it aesthetically. But the nice thing is you can see how amazingly easy it was to go from the previous page where I had a partially correct process to building a sub-process on another page with a couple of clicks and adding and fleshing out the rest of the logic of my process. Another very nice feature in Visio 2010, and I'll just take a moment to show it to you. This is a long, long requested feature, and I can tell you personally, I have many, many times wished for this feature, and here it is in Visio 2010. What if you like this page? Let's go back to a full page view here. You like it, sort of, but you want to do some things to it, but you don't want to affect the original one. What you'd really like to do is make a copy of this page and then work on the copy. Well, take a look at the bottom of the screen. You see page 1 and page 2. I'm going to right-click on the tab for page 2. Notice this entry that says duplicate. One click, I now have page 3 that is an identical copy of page 2. So I don't know about you, but I hope there's some of you out there going, oh, wow, because that's the way I felt when I first saw this. This saves an amazing amount of time and energy when you want to just make some variations on something that you've already got in place. Another handy thing I want to point out is a feature referred to as the infinite canvas. Krishna mentioned this in passing. If I drag a shape off the page or create shapes off the page by any means, shooting them there using the auto-connect arrows or whatever, notice that Visio has automatically expanded. Let's go to full page view here. Visio has automatically expanded the page size. If I add a couple of shapes in the downward direction here, and let's do it one more, then the same thing will happen in that downward direction. And so simply adding shapes off the page boundary triggers this infinite canvas idea and adds pages in either direction. And by the way, these are dynamic. If I remove the need for the extra page, let's grab that end shape and drag it back, then, well, I didn't go quite far enough. Let's bring it back. There you go. Notice that Visio dynamically contracts so that I have as many pages as I need. And one other very quick thing I'll show you, just because this is another feature that I find really handy. If I click on File, Print, the print preview is dramatically enhanced as well. Notice what you see here. You see tiles for each page so that you'll know exactly what is going to print on each page. I find that that is a very handy print preview. There also, you'll notice that if you've used Word or Excel 2013, this layout of the buttons and the features for printing is the same across the Office suite now. So Visio shares those settings in common. One last thing, let me add a new page, and I'm going to do that by clicking the Add Page button. Simply click that plus sign, and I get a page that's a mirror image of the one I just had. So it has the same background and border, and it has the same layout, in this case 2 pages. BPMN does allow for pools, otherwise known as swim lanes, and I can drag swim lanes onto the page from the stencil. I can attach them to each other to create a larger swim lane structure, and so it's all on a couple of pages here. And these swim lanes are very easy to modify, very easy to add shapes to. If I want to drag a process shape in, I get dynamic feedback, alignment information, and so forth. So all of the features that you need to have to create BPMN diagrams are there. All right, I've got just a couple of things I'd like to show you before I turn back to Krishna. He has a couple more things he'd like to describe for you, and also take that poll so that 5 of you have an opportunity to win a copy of Visio 2013. I want to talk about diagram validation, and to do that, I'm going to deliberately fix a couple of problems I know exist by deleting a couple of these pages that have spurious stuff on them. So let me do that. I'm also going to delete my bogus page 3 here that I added. And let's go back to page 1 and page 2. Here, let's zoom in, and this is the sub-process that we created. Krishna mentioned diagram validation. If we would click the check diagram button, there is a window that appears that says issues, and it describes for me the possible things, or the potential errors, the things that I want to know about this diagram. There are 4 different templates in Visio that include built-in validation rules. The flowchart, swim lane, BPMN, and SharePoint workflow diagrams all have predefined rules. And in this case, if I choose a particular rule, Visio will identify for me where that rule exists, the error exists, excuse me. I should have an end event on this page, and in fact, I put what is an intermediate event here rather than an end event. So the text says, if a start event is used, then there must be an end event. Well, what I can do is either use change shape, or in fact, let's do that. We did that once already. I'll do that quickly. Let's change shape to an end event, and let's run the rule again simply by, on the process tab, clicking check diagram. And notice that rule went away, that violation went away. In fact, there were 3 messages all related to one infraction. And now the message tells me, the dialog box tells me, diagram validation is complete. No issues were found. If you want to create your own rules, I'll show you in the very closing slide, or one of the closing slides, a place to go. I will be honest with you, Visio doesn't make it easy to edit or modify rules directly from within Visio, but one of my fellow Visio MVPs has created something he calls Rules Tools that is a very handy Visio add-in that lets you manage and edit and create Visio rules in a very easy way. Now, I mentioned themes, and I'll just spend 30 seconds and then turn back over to Krishna. Here's my simple little diagram. It looks okay. It's got some gradients in it, but what if I want to make it look even cooler? I can go back to that design tab you saw already, and I can apply any other kind of theme I want. Let's just pick one that's sort of bold and garish. I'll pick this reddish sort of color theme. If I want to single out a particular task for some reason, I can apply effects. And I can do that back on the Home tab and choose the Effects button. There's also a right-click menu option. Maybe I want to make this task glow a little bit, so I want to add a glow around it, just to visually call attention to that particular task. Just as you get a quick look at that, you notice that we can apply shadows, reflections. If you've used PowerPoint, I no longer have PowerPoint envy when I'm changing shapes on a Visio drawing, because I have all the same tools that are available here for bevels and soft edges and so forth that are in PowerPoint as well. All right, with that, let me turn back to Krishna. I'm going to go to his final slides here, and it's all yours, Krishna. Are you there, Krishna?
Yes, thank you, Scott.
Okay.
So Microsoft remains extremely committed to the business analysts and all the sort of tooling that they require in order to create process diagrams that are easy to use and that have strong integration with the rest of the Microsoft Office portfolio that is used very extensively across the organizations. We try and provide as many templates as possible that will encompass the entire spectrum of the type of diagrams you as business analysts create and collaborate with. And we have been very, very opportunistic as well as thoughtful in our requirement and ability to provide all the sort of solutions that you as business analysts need on a variety of devices available in the cloud. The idea is to make the entire profession of business analysts as democratized and as inclusive as possible. Now, if you also look at some of the new reports, etc., that are going to be present, that are in the media. For example, we are recognized as the leaders in the BPA space by Gartner, and we have a strong set of partners which do some of the things that are not available in Visio natively, such as providing support for some process simulations, etc. So in the interest of time, I've left a few Visio customer case studies here based on Visio 2013. You can go through them and see how various different customers in different parts of the world are getting benefited through Visio 2013. I just want to point you towards Malik Management, and from what I understand, they are almost recognized as the McKinsey of Switzerland. And some of the process frameworks that they came up with are also taught in business schools, etc. And they've been using Visio extensively, especially Visio 2013, to collaborate with their customers and create these professional-looking diagrams, connect to data, doing business process reengineering between Visio and SharePoint, etc. So if it is good for Malik, I'm sure it is good for many organizations in the world. So some of the other resources, we just published the BPM white paper on ModernAnalyst.com. Last I checked, it was on the homepage. So I certainly encourage you to look at it, as well as we are available across various different multimedia and social media channels. So take a look at all this. And some of the additional resources.
This is Scott.
That you can leverage.
The VisioRulesTools.com, or VisioRules.com, excuse me, is the validation rule editor that I mentioned from David Parker.
Thank you, Krishna and Scott, for a very informative presentation. Thank you to everyone for attending today's Modern Analyst webinar, sponsored by Microsoft. I wanted to point out the webinar, along with the slides, will be archived at ModernAnalyst.com within a few days. And this concludes today's event. You have a great day.